Sure. Well, I was, reminded that this is the 1-year anniversary of, the helicopter crash. It took Kobe Bryant's life and his daughter and the other passengers. And he was such an icon. And I know those feelings are probably a little magnified out there in LA. So I just wanted to start by recognizing that. And then, for the purpose of this call, I just wanted to start by saying how excited I am to be coming out to Los Angeles and the Chargers. I've known Brandon Staley a long time. And, when he got into coaching, I kind of thought that this opportunity would be coming for him sooner rather than later. So not at all surprised at how quickly he's ascended. I'm excited for him. I'm excited to be joining him, and just having him as the head coach and the staff it looks like he's putting together, and the pieces that have been put in place here by Tom Telesco and the scouting department. I'm very optimistic and excited to get started.
All right. Thanks, Coach. First question for you. We'll start with Daniel Popper.
Hey, Joe. Nice to meet you.
You too, Daniel.
Yeah. What excites you the most about working with Justin Herbert?
Well, look, he's got a skill set that is elite, and there's nothing, it appears there's nothing that he can't do. He's got an incredibly strong arm, good accuracy, and he's very athletic, and sounds like he's a real smart guy that's a good leader. So, he just checks all the boxes, and, the sky's the limit with a player like that.
Just from your conversations with Brandon in the interviews and afterward, just how concrete, how established is his vision for this offense? And then what do you think you'll be able to bring to that vision that he already has?
Yeah, he's got some very, some general things. We haven't talked, specific plays, but, a lot of that will get detailed out when you get the whole staff together, and hopefully in the next week or two when we start sitting down and, combining all the ideas and molding those into a playbook that we can apply to each game during the season. So, I know he wants to be able to play with some tempo. I know he wants to play to the strengths of the quarterback and the other players in the offense. And, those are things that we're all on board with.
What do you remember about Brandon as a quarterback at Mercyhurst?
Yeah, well, he was smart. He was athletic. And, when he was playing quarterback, he usually figured things out and we moved the ball. So, I only was with him for 1 year. He played 4 years at Dayton and then came into Mercyhurst to play his 5th year with his twin brother. And so they were really good memories. He was awfully smart and fun to be around.
Looking back on the experience you had with the Lions for that year and a half in 14 and 15, what did you learn from that process and how have you grown since those years in Detroit?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just, being able to be more flexible. I think spending so much time in New Orleans and doing things one way, you kind of got, used to that. And when you're put in a new situation where the schedule was different and maybe around coaches that weren't used to doing things the way that you were used to, just having the flexibility to adjust a little bit better maybe than we did back then. So that's the biggest thing is just, the flexibility to adjust as things aren't like you're used to them being.
And last one for me, obviously you spent a lot of time with Drew Brees, 15 seasons. What's your biggest takeaway from the time that you've spent with Drew Brees in your career?
Oh, just how detailed he is. I don't want to use the word controlling because that's got a negative connotation, but we always say, man, winners are controllers, meaning there's things in this game and in life that you can control and things that you can't. And just being on point and detailed and thorough with those things that you do control, I can't imagine there's anyone better at that than him. And so, there's variables in this game you have control over. Make sure you've got those figured out. That's just his preparation. That's the biggest thing.
Thank you.
All right, Gilbert Manzano.
Hey, Joe. Just curious, when did Brandon first approach you about this new job?
Well, I knew he was interviewing, and so we didn't talk specifically, but he's a guy that I'm kind of kept in touch with over the years, ever since he was coaching at St. Thomas, or really when he just started coaching. So, they were normal conversations, but I'd seen how well he did with the Rams and how good their defense played. And I assumed, man, there'd be some people calling you. And, so there's just some conversations that way, nothing specific. And then it wasn't really till after we'd lost that game to the Buccaneers that, he mentioned the possibility of me coming out there. So, there's more general talks before we were knocked out of the playoffs. And then I think once I was done working, so to speak, that's when we got more specific.
And Joe, after that, the stint with the Detroit Lions, you spent 5 years in New Orleans. Were you kind of hoping to be patient there and maybe kind of get settled there in New Orleans, or were you kind of itching to be a obviously coordinator again, or what's kind of the process during that 5 years that you want to come back to this point?
A little bit of both. I mean, this is an organization I've spent a lot of time with and have real strong feelings for, talking about New Orleans. So I really like it down here. So, I was always interested in another opportunity, but, wasn't just going to take any of them, if that makes sense. If it was a good opportunity, I was ready to take it. And man, I couldn't think of a better one than what I fell into here with the Chargers.
I'm sure you probably kind of answered, but I guess why did this one make sense for you?
Yeah, I think, Brandon, number one, just how well I know him, and I think how well he knows me. And Brandon came here in 2009 before our Super Bowl year, and he kind of sat in the quarterback room during training camp. And I bet you he's watched every single game we've played on offense here in New Orleans since then. And so just his familiarity with me and what we've done here, it makes it such an easier transition, not to mean that we're going to copy it, but just coming from a common background of football to be able to get things started. And just as he's in the beginning of putting a staff together, what he's looking for, it all lines up with the way that I think. So I just think it's going to be one of those, Sean Payton often says he's more interested in compatibility first before he thinks about capability. And I just think that the compatibility of what Brandon's building here is going to be second to none.
And Joe, last one for me. As you know, the game is changing every year, but it seems like this year it's very pass heavy, and maybe the running game is kind of forgotten a little bit. I guess what's kind of your thoughts on that? And do you think it's still important to establish a run, or you think with a quarterback like Justin Herbert, it's better to kind of pass heavy more?
Well, I think every situation's different. I heard a high school coach told me once when I was a real young, just starting out in coaching. He said you pass to score and you run to win, and it takes you a while to kind of figure out what he meant by that, but if you just look at bare statistics, every time a quarterback drops back to pass, you average, 7.5 to 8.5 yards per pass, and you might average 4.5 yards per run. So, it's easier sometimes to get big plays and chunks and get the ball downfield passing it. But if you have no running game, then it becomes harder to throw. And so I think there's got to be a balance. There are times in a game when you really want to be able to run. Whether you're in the red zone or, late in the game and you've got the lead. So I think it's important to have some balance, but I think when you've got a quarterback as talented as Justin, you definitely, you want to let him throw the ball when it's appropriate. That's for sure.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, Joe Reedy.
Joe, I know we've talked about Justin Herbert, but how excited are you to work with the other pieces of this offense, like Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, and the other receivers?
Yeah, it's like I said before, it's Tom Telesco's really put together a lot of good pieces for this offense, and I don't know if I've ever seen anyone just consistently get separation like Keenan Allen, and having another receiver like Mike on the other side of him. And then I know that Eckler has some of the skill set that I'm used to seeing in New Orleans, with whether it was Reggie or Darren Sproles or AK. So that's exciting to have someone with that skill set. And, it's very exciting to come and knowing that those pieces are in place and that we got a good chance to hit the ground running.
Your second stint in New Orleans, Taysom Hill came on, AK came on. Just how much did the offense maybe progress and evolve, maybe compared to the early days with Drew and some of those guys when they
Yeah,
came
I
along?
think for AK it was a little bit of an easier transition for us scheme wise because, like I said, he had some of those same things that we would do with Darren Sproles and Reggie, and then Taysom, of course, is a totally different animal. I mean, that was a complete sea change as far as how we used him when he was playing quarterback anyway, with some of the option stuff and quarterback runs. And then just having that vision of, man, this is one of the strongest guys on our team. Let's have him kind of play this hybrid tight end wide receiver role. He can run routes, he can block, he can catch. And so that was a fun part of the staff working together, is how we're going to incorporate him. And then you get guys like Mike Thomas, who, man, we had great receivers in New Orleans before he showed up, but he was different in what he was good at. And so, over the years, just as those pieces come in, that's really the offense's, the coach's job, is to figure out what these guys do well, maybe what they're not as good at, and let's keep having them do what they're good at and not ask them to do maybe what they're not as good at. And so, it's always an evolution, and it's nice to have good players to build off that.
When Brandon was at Mercyhurst with you, did you have the sense that he would be a future head coach?
Well, I wouldn't say right away. I mean, I knew he was smart. I can't recall if I knew that he wanted to get into coaching at that point. But the minute that he started coaching, then yeah, I had a feeling. In fact, I think when he was at John Carroll, we were talking, and he was talking about maybe the possibility of getting into the NFL. And I said, look, you'll get your chance, and I bet you'll be a head coach in 5 years when you get your chance. So pretty sure I called that one a long time ago. So now the minute he started coaching, I knew that he had a bright future.
And then just last thing for me, when looking for a quarterback coach or maybe other offensive assistants, what type of guys are you looking for?
I think first, guys that are easy to work with, fun to work with, guys that have good energy, and then diversity of experiences. Guys that have been in other offenses, other systems, maybe that can come in with some good ideas, and then have that compatibility to be able to sit down in a room and put all that together. Be open to other people's ideas and understand maybe when what they think are great ideas and accept it. So just that, that whole compatibility of building an offense from a variety of different perspectives. And then, hey, probably number one, that they're good fundamental guys, that they can coach the fundamentals and help their players develop in this league and perform at their best.
Okay, thanks.
Fernando Ramirez.
Hi, Joe. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You've coached the last few years Drew Brees, Teddy Bridgewater, Taysom Hill. Kind of what do you feel like you bring to the table when it comes to Justin Herbert and helping continue his development?
Yeah, I think just the detail that you learn when you're with a guy like Drew for that long, just with the details, the exactness of footwork and timing, preparation, how Drew communicates with his receivers and gets them on the same page as him, so he's able to communicate exactly what he wants from them, at the top of routes, or how to talk to him with their body language. And those are things that, man, they're coachable. I mean, you saw Teddy take that on. You saw when Taysom was playing, and you saw, Jameis, even though he didn't play a lot, there were times where he was preparing as the two because Taysom's playing tight end. And, man, you just see those guys take on that level of detail and the ability to communicate with their teammates and get everyone on the same page. So, it's going to be a fun next few years with him.
And then the offensive line has kind of been a problem these last few years for the Chargers. What are some of your plans for the offensive line to help build that up? So obviously Justin has time back there when he throws, and the running backs are able to find creases to take off running and all that.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had those discussions. That's more of an organizational question, and I haven't had enough time to really even evaluate what the offensive line did last year. So I don't want to speak out of turn there. But look, if your offensive line is struggling, there's ways to help them. With the speed. That's one thing. With working with a guy like Breeze, it didn't take many sacks because the ball came out. He knew where to go with it, and Justin's so athletic. Maybe there will be some more scrambles with him. Maybe that Drew wouldn't have gone off, taken those opportunities. But in some ways, sacks can be on the quarterback. Sometimes they're on the O-line. Sometimes they're on the receiver. Sometimes it's on the coach because you had a bad protection plan. And so, working all those things in, it's a team effort to keep the quarterback protected and upright. And I promise we'll have a good plan for that.
And last one for me. I know you never met your grandfather, but was there anything special that you remember about maybe something you saw in his office or at his house, or something special that you've taken away from him, even though you never met him?
Yeah, I think I've heard a lot of stories from my dad. Some good, some a little tougher, but I think just he was a man that took his faith very seriously, and that's been always something of all the things from my grandfathers. You look up to him as kind of this, you had this grandpa who was famous and successful in the field of football, and just how serious he took his faith is something that I think has rubbed off on me.
Thank you, Joe.
Sure
Congratulations.
thing. Thank you.
Shelley Smith.
Hey, Coach. I don't know why my screen's so fuzzy, but I'm going to get it fixed one of these days. I wanted to know, what conversations have you had with Justin, if any?
Yeah, I've reached out to him today. I just got his number and actually waiting for him to call me back. So
good luck with that.
Yeah. So no conversations yet, but I look forward to talking to him.
What do you expect to tell him about what you're going to do with this offense?
Well, I think we're going to tell him that we're going to, build it around him. Kind of maybe as we start this process, let's look at, what he was most comfortable with last year and his time at Oregon, what he's had the most success with, and just starting with those building blocks. Where, man, here's a series of plays that you already know that you can find a completion. You know exactly where to go with the football, and just kind of give him that comfort level at the start of. Knowing that he's starting with what he's been successful at.
He takes a lot of notes and he asks a lot of questions. Are you prepared for that?
Yeah, I'm used to that. That's pretty much a quarterback trait. So that's normal.
All right. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Miller.
So, Joe, who on this roster, who's going to be the Taysom Hill?
I don't think there's another one of those in the world. He's a very unique athlete, and easier said than done to try to find someone that can fill that role.
Exactly. Take us through exactly how this. Have you watched film of the Chargers so far, or is it too early? I mean, how's this transition go for you now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I just kind of got the job. I guess everything got finalized Sunday. So it's just been a couple days. We played them this year, and then they came across some of the cut-ups, and man, I know I was impressed with the quarterback. And we practiced against him in training camp for a few years, and so I'm familiar with some of the other pieces, although we're focusing more on their defensive guys than their offensive guys. But from what I know, I've got we're just kind of starting that vision and that process of evaluating the roster. But obviously you're familiar with some of the big pieces and know how what good players they are, and so you're starting that initial vision of what it's all going to look like. But excited about what we have to work with.
And you guys had that one game against the Chargers this year,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, obviously your mind is elsewhere during a lot of that games. Right now, how good of a grasp do you think you have on Justin's skill set, or is that something that's going to take film work and just?
I think I have a grasp on his skill set for sure. I mean, just evaluating him in the draft, you could see it. And as he was starting to have his success this year, you paid a little bit more attention, and you've seen his highlight throws. Like I said, his film came across our desk a lot as we were getting ready to prepare for another defense. So like when we're playing Carolina, we're watching a lot of Chargers film, and a few other teams that were shared opponents. So I've seen enough to know that, I've got no questions about his abilities. I mean, he is, if you lined up all the quarterback skill sets in the NFL, he'd be at the very top with a couple guys. So it's, like I said, the sky's the limit with what he's able to do.
All right, thank you.
Cam Buford.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Coach. How's it going?
Real good, Cam. How are you?
I'm well. Congratulations on the new opportunity you have here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What I'd like to know is, you kind of touched on this. We may be ahead of the game, though. Personnel issues. Will you have make a call on personnel decisions? Who you like to see added to the offense?
Well, like I said, we haven't even gotten to that point yet, but I assume as we sit down as a organization, everyone's opinions will be heard. That's kind of the standard operating procedure. Certainly, I'm not going to be the final decision on anything, but I'm sure that we'll just talk everything out like everyone does and make the best decision we can as an organization.
You talked about already having a relationship with Brandon before he became the head coach. Did you guys always talk about this position with him getting the job as a head coach and then you kind of being his coordinator or calling plays for him?
No, I don't think we ever got that specific, but I know that, I told him that he'd be a head coach sooner rather than later. So yeah, like I said, this didn't come as any surprise to me, but no, I was never promised any positions along the way.
Okay. Obviously there's Justin does a lot of things well. Last week, Brandon commented on his ability to run the 2-minute offense pretty well. Moving into the new season, and I know it's still early, but do you have ideas of kind of running a fast-paced offense and letting Herbert kind of flow with that spread offense, if you will?
Yeah, I think we wanted to have the ability to run this offense at different tempos, and a no huddle option, I think, is something that Brandon's discussed, and I'm all for. I think it's something he's real familiar with from his time at Oregon, and seems like these young guys more and more as they're coming out of college and these spread systems that play with that tempo. It's something that everyone's very comfortable with, and so I do think it'll be a part of what we're building here.
And that you're obviously comfortable with that, kind of opening up the offense like that?
For sure. Yeah, no question.
Okay.
Look, I'm comfortable with whatever our guys are good at. And man, if it's something that the quarterback thrives in, that's what we're going to want to do. Now, I think, again, having the ability to change your tempo and man, there are times where maybe you're up by a few scores in the second half and you want to shorten the game. And those are all things that we'll hammer out here in the next few months.
All right. Thank you for your time, man. Congratulations. I look forward to working with you soon.
Sure thing. Thank you.
All right, Coach, last one for you, Michael Peterson.
Hey, Coach. It's great to meet you.
You too, Michael.
My high school head coach was Tony Lombardi, so this is a little nostalgic speaking to another Coach Lombardi.
I love it.
I'm just curious. Coach Staley talked about how much he reads, and he even mentioned listening and watching the Sloan Analytics Conference within the last few years. I was just curious if you're a big reader and if you've got any football book recommendations that you think maybe impacted you as a coach and/or a person.
All right, I am a big reader. Bill Walsh's book, huge thick volume. I think it's called Finding the Winning Way. Man, that opened my eyes as to how much organization and how much more goes into football than what I thought as I was a young coach. Trying to think of any other football book. I know they're in there, but I'm just, for whatever reason, it's slipping my mind. But yeah, I would call myself an avid reader.
Awesome. And just because the recent Senior Bowl is starting this week, and again, it's probably really early, just curious if there's any plans for you and the staff to partake in maybe watching what's going on this week, or if that's a little bit too early for you guys.
Well, we'll certainly, they're filming everything, the interviews and the practices. And so, different, maybe certainly for us down here in New Orleans, we could just drive over. It's less than 2 hours down the road. So we were always present. A lot of staffs just probably like we'll do this year, got the tape and evaluated it that way.
Awesome.
So
Thank you.
we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. Just might not be in the same time frame that I'm used to anyway.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure thing.
You know what? I lied. Matt Money Smith has a question. He just doesn't know how to raise his hand on here. So let's
Yeah,
go
I'm
to
an
Matt.
idiot. Sorry.
No worries.
Welcome,
No worries.
welcome, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just would love to know kind of if there is a general position on aggressiveness. So many, post game conversations about when to go for it on fourth down, kicking field goals versus touchdowns. If there's a particular part of the field, and maybe how that has changed for you and how you view offense and how to be aggressive.
Well, I'll say this, whenever Sean asks, should we go for it on fourth down? I usually pipe in yes. So, now he's the one who's going to get booed if we don't make it. So it might be easier
Right.
when he's calling the plays, but, yeah, I think, I'm a huge fan of going for it. I always think of like, what would I want if I'm on the other sidelines? And, I always feel like when a team's going for it on fourth down, I'm like, I wish they were just punting it. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of going for it on fourth down, and but every game situation's different. I know we've been playing teams, and you're paying attention to the other offense, and you can see they're struggling. And Sean's like, "Should we go for it?" I'm like, "No, punt it," because they're not doing very well on the other side of the field. So I think you got to pay attention to the game flow a little bit, but I know all the data analysis says that we're probably not aggressive enough as NFL coaches. So I'm in favor of moving in that direction.
Do you feel like that's changed recently? Because of the data sets that are now being shared,
Yeah.
Have you maybe changed how you feel about that?
Yeah, I suppose so. I think when you grow up or you get raised in a culture, you kind of go along with the prevailing wisdom, and it's fourth down. This is time to punt, and we're going to play defense and field position and all those things. And there's a time for that. But yeah, I remember, man, I was still coaching at some small college somewhere, and there was this Cal Berkeley study on going for it on fourth down that pretty much said the only time you should punt would be like 4th and 15 at your own 5-yard line or something like that. So that's a little extreme, but ever since then, I've always felt like, we're probably not aggressive enough in those situations.